Bill, Wil- Bill Wilson's Grapevine article, Emotional Sobriety, The Next Frontier, published January 1958. I think that many oldsters who have put our AA booze cure to severe but successful tests still find they often lack emotional sobriety. Perhaps they will be the spearhead for the next major development in AA, the development of much more real maturity and balance, which is to say, humility, in our relations with ourselves, with our fellows, and with God. Those adolescent urges that so many of us have for top approval, perfect security, and perfect romance, urges quite appropriate to age 17, prove to be an impossible way of life when we are age 47 or 57. Since AA began, I've taken immense wallops in these areas because of my failure to grow up emotionally and spiritually. My God, how painful it is to keep demanding the impossible, and how very painful to discover finally that all along we have had the cart before the horse. Then comes the final agony of seeing how awfully wrong we've been, but still finding ourselves unable to get off the emotional merry-go-round. How to translate a right mental conviction into right emotional result, and so into easy, happy, and good living. Well, that's not only the neurotics problem, it's the problem of life itself for all of us who have gotten to the point of real willingness to hew to the right principles in all our affairs. Even then, as we hew away, peace and joy may still elude us. That's the place so many of us AA oldsters have come to, and it's a hell of a spot, literally. How shall our unconscious, from which so many of our fears, compulsions, and phony aspirations still stream, be brought into line with what we actually believe, know, and want? How to convince our dumb, raging, and hidden Mr. Hyde becomes our main task. I've recently come to believe that this can be achieved. I believe so because I begin to see many enlightened ones, folks like you and me, commencing to get results. Last autumn, depression, having no real rational cause at all, almost took me to the cleaners. I began to be scared that I was in for another long chronic spell. Considering the grief I've had with depression, it wasn't a bright prospect. I kept asking myself, why can't the 12 steps work to release depression? By the hour, I stared at the St. Francis prayer. It's better to be comforted than to be comforted. Here was the formula, all right, but why didn't it work? Suddenly, I realized what the matter was. My basic flaw had always been dependence, most absolute dependence on people or circumstances to supply me with prestige, security, and the like. Failing to get these according to my perfectionist dreams and specifications, I had fought for them. And when defeat came, so did my depression. There wasn't a chance of making the outgoing love of St. Francis workable and joyous way of life until these fatal and almost absolute dependencies were cut away. Because I had because I had over the years undergone little spiritual development, the absolute quality of these frightful dependencies had never been before so starkly revealed. Reinforced but by what grace I could secure in prayer, I found I had to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty emotional dependencies upon people, upon AA, indeed, upon any set of circumstances whatsoever. Then only could I be free to love as Francis had. Emotional and instinctual satisfaction I saw were really the extra dividends of having love, offering love, and expressing love appropriate to each relation of life. Plainly, I could not avail myself of God's love until I was able to offer it back to Him by loving others as He would have me. And I couldn't possibly do that as long as I was victimized by these false dependencies. For my dependencies meant demand, a demand for the possession and control of the people and the conditions surrounding me. While those words absolute dependency may look like a gimmick, they were the ones that helped to trigger my release into my present degree of stability and quietness of mind, qualities which I am now trying to consolidate by offering love to others regardless of the return to me. This seems to be the primary healing circuit, an outgoing love of God's creation and his people by means of which we avail ourselves of his love for us. It is most clear that the real current can't flow until our paralyzing dependencies are broken, and broken at depth. Only then can we possibly have a glimmer of what adult love really is. Spiritual calculus, you say? Not a bit of it. Watch any AA of 6 months working with a new 12-step case. If the case says to the devil with you, the 12-stepper only smiles and returns to another case. He doesn't feel frustrated or rejected. If his next case responds and in turn starts to give love and attention to other alcoholics, yet gives none back to him, the sponsor is happy about it anyway. He still doesn't feel rejected. Instead, he rejoices that his one-time prospect is sober and happy. And if this next following case turns out in later time to be his best friend or romance, then the sponsor is most joyful. But he well knows that his happiness is a byproduct, the extra dividend of giving without any demand for return. The really stabilizing thing for him was having and offered love to that strange drunk on his doorstep. That was Francis at work, powerful and practical, minus dependency and minus demand. In the first 6 months of my own recovery, my own sobriety, I worked hard with many alcoholics. Not a one responded, yet this work kept me sober. It wasn't a question of those alcoholics giving me anything. My stability came out of trying to give, not out of demanding that I receive. Thus, I think it can work out with emotional sobriety. If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we find at the root of it some unhealthy dependency and its consequently unhealthy demand. Let us, with God's help, continually surrender these hobbling demands. Then we can be set free to live and love. We may then be able to 12-step ourselves and others into emotional sobriety. Of course, I haven't offered you a really new idea, only a gimmick that has started to unhook several of my own hexes at depth. Nowadays, my brain no longer races compulsively in either elation, grandiosity, or depression. I have been given a quiet place in bright sunshine.
Thank you, Shar.
Thank you.
And tonight it is my pleasure to introduce my friend Cynthia, who was we were the members of the same home group for a long time, and then we were members of the same, her and her husband and I remember the same martial arts class for a little bit of time, doing some Israeli like Krav Maga stuff, and she is just a ton of fun. She's an awesome woman. She has a great story, and she is now a trained killer. So if we could, we'll give it up to you, Cynthia. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'll say the key word there is trained. I was probably a killer before, I just wasn't trained. No, I'm not a trained killer. But thank you so much for asking me to come and share with this meeting here. And I'm super excited too, because two of my dear friends are here. So my friend Kelly texted me and said, "Are you speaking tonight at this thing?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, my friend Liz told me about it." And they're from I've known Kelly for eons, and I've known Liz for eons too. They're from my old home group back in Orlando, and I do have a home group today. I'm in Nashville and Franklin, Tennessee, and my home group is the Franklin Road Women's Group. We meet on Monday nights, 6:30. If you are ever in town, ladies, come and join us. And if a man pops in, we don't turn him away either. But we'll tell them where there's other meetings after the meeting. But I'm just really glad to be here. And when Sam kind of went over today, initially when he asked me, I thought, oh, I'm going to be sharing my story. And then when he told me the format of the meeting, that we go over the emotional sobriety and language of the heart and then talk about it, I was like, okay, it's been a while since I've read it. So I cracked it open and, right away I saw the dependencies and my initial reaction was like, crap. I was like, oh crap, because I went to a counselor one time and she told me that I was anti-dependent. So I was like, I'm not gonna have anything to share. I don't, which is such BS, right? I mean, clearly, if you look, yes, I'm anti-dependent. I don't want to depend on you. I'm not going to depend on anybody for help. I'm going to do it all by myself, which is those faulty, perfectionist dreams and specifications, those faulty emotional dependencies. That's what I have in my mind of like, I don't need anybody. I only need myself. And then I don't owe you anything. You don't owe me anything if I don't ask you for help. And that is not an easy way to get by in this world, because obviously in this program, we're taught quite the opposite, that we need to have each other. We can't do this thing alone. I had to ask for help. Which makes me think about one time I was at I think it was Circuit Pa. I was at a Circuit Pa event and we were doing this thing where we had to go through these, I think it was like a ropes course thing, you're all tangled up or whatever. And in order to get out of this entanglement with all these other people, you have to say kind of the magic words to the person who's like organizing it. And people right away start saying it and all of a sudden they get released and everybody else struggling and trying to do it themselves. And the only way you can get out is if you ask the moderator guy for help and then they let you out. And it was such a powerful lesson because it was like some of us I sat in there for quite a good while thinking, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to get out of it myself. I don't need help, and then finally I think I caught on that like, oh, I think that person asked for help. I should probably ask for help, which is what it's like coming into AA. Like who wants to, I don't want to say that I can't manage my life, that I can't manage drugs and alcohol. And, but I had to give up my way.
Cynthia, hang on one second. Hey, Raul, I think you're unmuted. Buddy, you there, Raul? Corey, can you mute him? Or Raul, is he? Yeah, it looks like he's muted now. Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So anyway, so I came in and I had to ask for help, right? I have to ask somebody to sponsor me and get rid of that start giving up that dependency of like, I'm going to do this myself. And realizing that I do need other people if I'm going to stay sober, and starting to accept that and like getting a home group and like doing these things in this program that are totally contrary to how I operate, what my default is. Because my default is never like, let me ask for help, ever. Even today. Like, and I'll tell you something too, it's kind of funny because like one thing that my manager really likes about me at work is that she can like just throw something at me. I don't ask a lot of questions, I go figure it out, which is so my personality. Like, I got it. I don't need anybody's help, I'll do it all by myself. So I guess sometimes it can help you, but I think over the years, because what I was thinking of too, when I was reading this earlier, is I was thinking like, okay, so clearly I have had these dependencies in my head that I've had to give up over the years, because I've definitely said before many times that I believe I can feel much more insane in sobriety than I ever did drinking, because I don't have the drugs and alcohol to make me feel better. I have to get through it somehow. I don't have any, what am I going to do? I can either suffer or I'm going to pick up these tools, these spiritual tools that have been given to us. And sometimes in my sobriety, I've chose not to. And I've hit those emotional bottoms and sat around and been like, how can I be XYZ years sober and hate myself or be miserable? And everything seems fine, And I think one of those dependencies that I had to really let go of for myself was just the idea. I came in to the program when I was really young, so I had these ideas that, well, now that I'm sober, everything, everything's going to work out the way it's supposed to, right? I'm going to meet the guy, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have the, white picket fence, and we're going to live happily ever after and have the baby. And nothing bad is ever going to happen again because now I'm doing the right thing. And that's just not the case. Life still happens and things still happen. And I think that was the biggest one that I had to let go of, like being in these relationships that I was trying to fit that, the square peg in the round hole of like, just it's gonna work, because I thought I wanted a certain outcome, or I wanted my life to be a certain way, rather than saying I'm okay with whatever it ends up being, I'm okay with. And it just took me a long time to get there, and a lot of failed attempts at trying to make it work to really get to that realization that I had to give it up. And for me, one of the things that I was thinking of is with the times in my life where I've hit those emotional bottoms. And I know Liz and Kelly remember this. So I don't know how sober I was, how many years I had in the program, but I got a divorce, and I did get married in sobriety, and then got a divorce in sobriety, which was gut wrenching. And it was awful. Not that any divorce is, I think all divorces are awful. And I just remember like you just bottoming out and being like, I just can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And it was so funny because I don't think I was sponsoring anybody at the time, but wouldn't you know it, I all of a sudden picked up 3 new sponsees. And I just remember having to meet with these sponsees, and I remember walking through that, and thank God for like sponsorship and the tools of this program, because I remember walking through that and my sponsor telling me just keep writing it out, go to meetings, do the prayer, the meditation. And I picked up these sponsees right away. And it was such a blessing, because for that time that I was speaking with those sponsees, I wasn't talking about the divorce. I wasn't thinking about me. I was thinking about them. And when I look back on that period of my life, because it was a situation where if I wasn't working a program, I would have been the untrained killer in me would have come out. I would have burnt the house down, that's me. I'll burn your house down, and then I'm going to burn the car down, and I'm going to let you know how angry I am. But because I was working a program and I was working with these ladies, I didn't do that. And I got through the divorce, and I got on the other side, and I didn't have to make amends to him or his family, which was really shocking that that was wow, that when I look back on it, I was like, there was something carrying me through that time in my life. And it was definitely this program and the people that I had around me at that time. And then I'll share another thing that I was thinking of is, and I was like, why are these all relationships? And I don't know why. I guess, there's a story that I was thinking about when I was in school. I went to school for social work, and I don't remember what class it was in, but we read this thing, and it was talking about this woman who went off, and she was working in a refugee camp in Africa or someplace like that, where there were these refugees, and she couldn't believe it, that she was like, here these people are, they're fighting for their food, their basic necessities, food, shelter, security. And she's like, the number one thing people wanted to talk to me about was relationships. And she's like, it just surprised me. But I always think about that, because it's relationships are really important, and especially now that I'm sober and that I can have relationships, and I want to have these relationships in my life. When I met my husband that I have now, I knew that I wanted to make this work with him. I love him, and we fit. It's funny because all the years out there dating, we've only been married for 4 years, but all the years I was out there dating, trying to make it work, and then I finally gave it up and I was like, whatever, if I'm single for the rest of my life, I am totally fine with that. And I was totally fine with it. And then I met my husband and knew right away. It was like we met and we were like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. Okay, like I get it. And he felt the same way. And we got engaged not long after we met and got married. And I remember talking to my sponsor, and like I wanted this for so long. Like I wanted to be married and in a relationship with someone, in a successful, healthy relationship with someone for so long. And I called my sponsor one day because I just was heading home and I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I do not think that I can form a partnership with another human being like this. And she was like, and I thought she'd be like, oh, Cynthia, you got this. You know, you can do it. And she was like, yeah, you can't do this. You need to have God's help. Like the only way you are going to do this is if you bring God into this relationship. And it was like, oh yeah, like that. I don't, if it's me, I don't do it. And if it's me, he is not going to stay with me, because when I am not working a program, I am not a nice person. You know, I'm throwing stuff across the room and acting crazy. When I'm working a program, I can have a healthy relationship with another human being. And, you know, it's interesting because I had to get, like, it was one thing living alone and being single and like being spiritual and all that kind of stuff, but you know, you have your own space or whatever, but coming together, and he has a daughter, and all of that changed. Like I really had to dig deep. And then COVID hit. And all of a sudden I had a husband home with me every day, and our stepdaughter was here every day. And I had to, again, like really dig deep and let go of these ideas. I had no control. I had to let go of these ideas of how I think things should be and how I want the outcome to be. And, you know, at the end of it, I look back and like when he went back to work, because he's in the music business, so he stopped working right away when it hit. When he went back to work this past March, I actually missed him. You know, like I missed having him around the house. Like we were eating lunch together, but if something happened during the day, I could run downstairs and let him know what was going on. And you know, it's funny because if I didn't have the tools of this program, there's no way that he and I would still be married, you know. And I definitely wouldn't be able to, like, you know, hold a job and all that other kind of stuff that you know, we get once we're in the program. And the thing is like for me, it's like I don't know if it's on this necklace, but I usually wear like my little AA necklace. I think this one has courage, but usually the one, I had two of these, and the ones I had before this were perseverance. Because like at the end of the day, like for me, that's like what this program means, is like just keep persevering, like no matter what, even when I feel like it is over and I'm done. One of my favorite sayings, and this really isn't a program saying, I'm not going to worry about it, right, Sam? It's a workshop, so I can say it. But it's like, you can't save your ass and your face at the same time. You just can't. Like, I have to be willing to show up and say, this is what's going on, you know? And like, the other thing is like, I was reading this and like, I'd love to say that like, I have love for all of God's children today. I don't, you know? And I was at my home group on Monday and we were laughing about this because like, there's one particular resentment that I have that is my husband's ex-wife. And it's, you know, and someone else was laughing and they're like, oh, I've got an ex-wife, you know what I mean? And it's like, but you know, it is what it is. But I'm still working on it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm praying about it. I'm not saying like I'll never give this up. I'm hoping someday I'll give it up. But you know, it's not like, I didn't want to sit here and today and tell you that like, oh, I love everybody. Do I hate her? No. Do I love her? No. But I hope that I can get there one day. And I know I can. I know I can with this program because I have with other resentments that I've held on to. So this is a really cool meeting. I'm really glad that you guys do this and that you read this. This is it was really great to come back and get into this article. I really love this reading. So I'm just glad to be here, and thank you again so much for asking me to come and share for a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you. Great share. So typically what we do, Cynthia, is we'll call on two people. So just call on two people who, you see on here, and then we'll open it up where we call on people who raise their hands. So
I just call two names at one time, or I just call one person?
one person at a time.
Oh, all right. I'm calling Kelly.
Yes. Come on, Kelly.
Thank you, Cynthia. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly. I'm an alcoholic. And Sam, this is a great meeting. Cynthia, great to hear you. Yeah. I don't know. I just really, it's so great to know people, like I know this girl and it was really, I remember all of that. And I'll tell you, I think part of why we're such good friends is because she doesn't need anybody and I need everybody. And so for me, the idea of dependence, I definitely depended on like everybody in AA, like, oh, I have a problem. What do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? Like, let me come over to your house and just never leave. And, all that stuff. I think it says in the 5th step something about like our relationships with others are the primary reason for our woes, right? So like, I don't know anybody that comes in here and does this well and perfectly. I know that for me, what's happened is that pain is the greatest motivator. And when something stops working, I have to find a different way to do it, and thank God for sponsorship, because usually people with experience have some suggestions for what they did when it stopped working for them. But I'll say too, that for me, another thing that I've really had to do is I've really had to look at, and Cynthia's 9 days longer than me. I think we celebrated 25 years last year. And, like it's still, I still find myself steps 1, 2, and 3, like so often. And then I was thinking while you were talking too, like it's also step 10, because I'll tell you, like, I can definitely get into a place of like, I'm right, they're wrong. I'm not going to think about it anymore. F them, and the truth is I actually have to think about it. If I'm disturbed, I have to think about it. What's going on? Why am I so bothered by this? And what can I do about it? And step 10 tells me what I can do about it and how to let it go. My biggest struggle is I think my brain can figure it out. Here's the situation, here's what I want to happen. And I think my brain can figure it out. And sometimes it can, but a lot of times the tools work really well too. Turn it over, surrender it, be of service. And try to be in a situation where, I really am turning my will and my life over and allowing the magic to happen. Because that's my experience, is that when I do that, the magic happens and it's amazing. So I love you, Cynthia. It's so nice to see you again from across the country. And Liz, thank you for sending me this and saying, hey, is this our friend that's talking? So that I knew about the meeting. So great to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Very cool. Small world.
Yeah.
All right, you get to do the Hollywood Square.
Do I pick someone or does Kelly? You're on mute, I think.
You pick on 2 or 3 people.
Me? Okay,
Yeah.
well then I'll pick Liz.
Liz, come on
I
with
knew
it.
that was coming. My name's Liz and I am an alcoholic. Grateful to be here and grateful to be sober. And when I saw your name today on a flyer, I was like, oh my God, that's Cynthia. I'm almost sure that's Cynthia. How many Cynthia S's could be in Nashville, Tennessee? And so I was really excited. I know a few people in Nashville and you're one of them. And it's so fabulous to be able to hear you on this particular emotional sobriety meeting that I think our friend Tina from our home group From the Heart told me about this like probably 6 or 8 months ago. And I've been trying to come every week. And it's so great to hear all these different people. And now I actually know somebody who's who's sharing, and that's always a wonderful thing. And I'm just like you, Cynthia. I'm just like you. I, dependent on another person, absolutely not. I can do it myself. If my manager needs something done, she comes right to me. No, there's no questions asked. I just get it done. That's what they all say. Oh, ask Liz, she'll get it done, no matter what. And, it's just like what you said, when I came in here, I had to learn to rely on others and find a higher power and, realize that I didn't have all the answers, and that life is not hunky-dory at all the time, and, shit happens, like, like 8 years ago, my husband got ill, and he's still ill, and, but he recently took a job like an idiot. And, it just irritates me, but I pray for him every day. And some days are good and some days are bad. But, so 8 years ago, because of all the medical stuff, we lost our house, and that was just brutal to me, because it was my parents' house that we had bought from my family, and then I go and lose it. And, so that was really hard. And so I've been living in we got a great apartment, and we've done okay. And, blah, blah, blah. I was able to put my kid through college. Amazing, right? I have tons of debt for that, but still, it's all good. And last week they told us our lease was going to be raised by $350 a month. And I was just like, you people are crazy. Like, what is happening here? And my husband's going nuts over it. And all I can do is like turn it over and put it in God's hands, like she's going to take care of me. It doesn't matter. It'll be okay. Whatever happens, that $350, we'll find it, or we won't, but everything will be okay no matter what. And I found that out, by coming in here and becoming dependent on you guys, my God with skin, and on my higher power, and just turning things over and living life, as I know it, a day at a time. I can't solve everything in one day, even at work, I can't solve everything in one day. But, if I realize who I am, that I'm an alcoholic, and I have to come to you guys to get help, then everything will be all right eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it'll be okay. And I know that. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for being here tonight and for sharing with us. It was so great to hear you. Thanks.
Thank you. You remember that line, and don't tell mom the babysitter's dead? I'm right on top of that, Rose. Right on top of that. That's Cynthia. And right on top of that, Rose. Hey, Kurt, what are you doing, man? I miss you.
Hey, buddy, good to see you guys. I would just love to listen tonight.
Okay. Let's go with, what about Kimberly?
Oh gosh, I'm not on mute. I'm sorry. I've been doing dishes. Hold on. Hey, I want to thank Cynthia for that lead. I really appreciate your discussion. I think when I first came in and I met Cynthia, she was one of the first women I met in sobriety. And I think we were reading the book, Emotional Sobriety, in a book study through some women. And my sponsor was friends with her. And I really thought, this woman's got it all together. I remember saying that when I first came in the rooms. The thing I take away, I think I locked my cat in the cupboard. I think one of the top things that I really take away from this particular conversation tonight is the reminder that I have so much dependence. My dependence is definitely on people, places, and things, and relationships as I see them, as I think they should happen. Work relationships, friends, family, kids, life. the relational aspect of when I'm disturbed, Cynthia, you reminded me of that. That chaos, those steps are necessary for my spiritual condition in order to get an emotional sobriety. And I love this whole essay and so many different facets and pieces, but the dependency piece that you brought up as it relates to my dependence on the outcome of things. I have such a strong dependence on how I think things should play out, and that giving up that is necessary, not just for my alcohol, but in order to soothe my soul. And I love that this speaks to so many people in that way. Sam, I always love that this happens. I didn't know Cynthia was speaking tonight. I guess I should have read that in the flyer. But yeah, Corey, I didn't know. But I love Cynthia, and I love when I see her, and I think she's a great mom. And I think, what I see of her in her relationship with her marriage is something I've aspired to. That's what I want. That's what I want to find, is that sort of connectiveness, which makes one, I hate to use the word work, but the giving of ourselves to God, of my understanding, and that higher power, in order to turn it over and to release it. It's given back in such great folds. And thank you so much for Cynthia for sharing your story. I just love that. And there you go, Samuel.
Thank
I'll
you.
mute myself now. Sorry.
What about our friend Dawn? It's been so good as to start helping. We're starting to pass the torch over to Dawn. Dawn, what you got going on over there?
I'm Dawn, I'm alcoholic.
Hey, Dawn.
Put it back on the gallery so I can see the people. Thank you for sharing, Cynthia. I enjoyed that. I have that, that murderous instinct myself, and I have to, constantly be reinforced by the grace I can secure in prayer not to turn it on. But it's a really good time in my recovery because I'm learning a lot about myself that I didn't know. And I've been, since we're allowed to, mention other literature here, I've been just opened the book to some readings that, I don't even know the names of it yet, so don't ask me. I'm not even sure. I'm still just beginning to walk down a little bit of a journey about working with, the voices in my head that tell me that this is what you need to do. And the one that I found is most troublesome right now is saying this is what they need to do. And so I really ran into fix, manage, and control. And today I have 10 house guests. So you can imagine how this might be, causing some trouble for the fix, manage, and controller. And I had a couple of people coming in on airline flights, trying to make sure that I was at the airport on time, trying to make sure everybody has, arrangements to sleep. And my God, they might get hungry. And, I am so susceptible to the zip line into self. And the thing that I heard when the reading was being read, the only thing I heard was reinforced by the grace I could secure in prayer, that I have a possibility of not being attached to the person that I've always been. And when I'm so far into that fix, manage, control, I know what's best. I know how everybody will be comfortable. I just turn into a person that needs to be restrained. It's just the truth. And so today's been an exercise, and I'm sure when I, go to my nightly review, I think right now I haven't gotten into the bed yet, so it could go south at any moment. But I will be able to have at least 50% success, and that was reinforced by umpteen prayers. And but I'm asking for a new way of living that I know nothing about. And I've had moments and periods of time in my recovery where I was released from that bondage of self, but that releasing was given with so much pain that I was humbled to the extent that I could barely move. But now that I think that, okay, I can get up and walk again, now I'm like running across the room, like my sponsor, Mary said, the thing that I'm really claiming spiritual progress with is this is new material for me. And I'm lucky, very lucky. I don't know how I got this. I have no idea. But I've been graced through my recovery with a willingness to try to receive more. Sometimes it was demand to receive more, but I've kind of moved away from that a little bit. One of the things that I always think about when the reading is read, and the thing that I think that I've gotten the most out of this particular workshop is when it talks about my reliance on AA, people, money, property, prestige, even AA. The fortune that has come to me from living through the COVID experience when I didn't have the normal access to AA that I was comfortable with, familiar with, years of showing up at the same place, doing the same thing, talking to the same people, and we all got it going on. And going through COVID made it so that my reliance shifted gears to a higher source. And I think as a result of that, I've had a lot of growth that is very unfamiliar to me, very unfamiliar territory. And I'm the girl that wants to arrive. I want to land and be given an A and moved into consulting. Thank you. And it appears that that's not the case. So thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone that shared.
Thank you. What about my friend Joel? Joel, are you around, buddy? Hadn't heard from you in a little while. Joel Minisquero. Let's see. We'll give him
I would like to just listen tonight, okay?
All right. Thanks, buddy. What about Charles? Charles, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Good. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Cynthia. Enjoyed that. It made me kind of go back a little bit. I was thinking about this dependency stuff, of how it's over the last, year that I've been here, doing many inventories on it, but it took me back to that pride thing. I'm just so full of pride that I don't want to ask for help. And I got an ego problem that if I ask you to help me or ask a question, that means I got to humble myself. And sometimes that's hard for an egomaniac like myself to do. Even with many years of sobriety, it's hard for me to admit that I need your help. I met Mickey out in Colorado probably about, 15 years or so ago. And he always told me about this emotional sobriety stuff and how he affected, later on in sobriety. But I can understand it now that the importance of it is for me to watch myself, to stay out of that ego, stay out of that point in my brain where, I want to go too far forward or, I'm slipping too far backwards. And, a lot of the things that for me is I can't hear you, if I'm thinking of what, I would say or what I would have said. And so it's really pretty neat to listen to different aspects of people and how we deal with this emotional sobriety, because it affects everyone, you know, different, and wherever your sobriety is at. And I just love this meeting a lot, and appreciate everybody that shared, and God bless.
You know, it was really interesting, Cynthia, when you were talking about how when you got sober young, and then you had that idea that now you would live out your narrative, you know, in a way that would be suitable to you with God's help, kind of thing. Like I remember for a long time, I don't know how this happened, but I had this like quid pro quo thing going on with God, you know, like it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to turn this over to you, and I'm going to behave myself and do step work or help these people, and then you're going to give me what I want, you know, like I'm going to get this right. And then a lot of people, and then you get what you want and you go, shit, I don't want this. You know what I mean? Like, this is a mess. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you start calling plays, you know, and then all of a sudden you just want to walk off the field, you know, throw the towel in and walk off the field, you know? And I had that happen a lot of times, and especially with relationships, you know? I mean, I stayed in some relationships because I was afraid what people would think about it if I got a divorce. You know what I'm saying? Like, just dumb stuff. So for me, probably one of the most profound step experiences I had was about 14 years sober. I went back through the book. I remember I was listening to a Charlie Parker talk, and he was talking about how he worked with Mark Houston. And so I got back and listened to Mark Houston, and then started listening to Don Pritz. And then I remember I was like, oh yeah, man, that Tom guy loves that dude. I was like, I'm going to go through this and make sure I did the exact right way. And everything in my life just came to a head and just blew up, you know, just everything. And I was like, shit, man, I'm 35 and I'm sober and I have fucked everything up. Like, how did I do this? Like, I've got 2 kids, 2 baby mamas, you know, like, I mean, I have all this debt from business, and I've tried so hard at all of it. And I remember we went through this 3rd step thing together, and he wanted me to consider 5 things I've been unwilling to give up for a better relationship with God. And it was like, you know, money, approval, romance. And it wasn't that I would voice those things. I wasn't necessarily conscious until he asked me that. But these were areas of my life where I was like, you know, I appreciate your help here, but I've got this over here. You know, this is kind of where I kind of feel like I have a better idea than you're going to have for me here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really feel like maybe you're not even really that interested. And besides, you don't talk back that much, you know? So when we talk, like, I feel like this is probably what I want. And, you know, you helped me pave the way to this. And it was so funny when I gave up all that stuff and got peace, that piece of like, you know, and Mark Houston talks about this. He finally went to the nut ward with like 10 years sober. And he goes, you know what? I came to the place where I thought, God, you know, if you'll help me to be sane and let me be useful to you and give me some peace, I'll do whatever you want. Whatever job you want me to have, I'll do it. Whatever relationship you want me to have, I'll do it. And then this peace comes over you. I remember I had like a few $1,000 that I put aside for a tax thing. And I left this job. I mean, all this stuff. And next thing you know, just the most amazing stuff started to happen, you know, and I wasn't scared at all. And God rebuilt in my life, business-wise, financially, relationship-wise, everything. And it's like in that spiritual experience, it says, you know, changes that would often not occur within years of self-discipline often happen in a few months, you know, and it talks about in the appendix of spiritual experience, you know, things that I couldn't bring about with years of self-discipline just come out like that. And these things just started to pop off and happen. And it was better than what my movie would have been in those areas, better what my plan would have been, all these things. And it was, and the different thing about kind of having the spiritual life is I don't get as disappointed because I'm not as married to the outcome. You know, it's a much more freeing place to be, you know. They used to always ask Chuck C, like, how do I know if it's God's will, if it's my will? And he goes, well, if it's your will, it's important to you. You know what I'm saying? I'm holding on to that fucker. You know what I mean? Anyway, I truly appreciated your share tonight. And, you know, it's funny that I still think I'm reading this book that was written by some anonymous AA people on this 10th, 11th, and 12th step. Tom said, "Hey man, why don't you check this book out and just see what you think? It's just for fun to see what it is." And one of the things that I've not underrated, but I've kind of underrated is the 10, 11, and 12. I mean, not 10, 11, and 12, but step 10, the 10th step, as it is in the big book, like continue to watch for resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, and fear when these crop up. So I began to get back in that place of being the moment to moment observer and watching it as it comes up. And the piece that I never got was starting to surrender what I want up to God, that being kind of the selfishness part. When selfishness cropped up, I never thought about that. And I'm like, oh shit, here I have a want, like just a weird random want. Here you go. Just kind of watching these things lift up. And it's such an incredible place to kind of get out of being mind bound and to really live from that place of the heart in the moment that I'm in, really live with that spiritual energy and going, I can't do anything about any of this shit, but I'm observing it and I'm giving it up to God. I've got a lot of, and to have that kind of relationship with the power, that it's not some quid pro quo thing. I don't turn things over to God and get everything that I want. I turn everything over to God because my ass is whooped, and then I get what God wants from me, and that's kind of what I really enjoy, my experience of that. Oh, Dennis and Joanna. I believe it's Joanna. Joanna, you've had your hand up for a little while. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I liked what you had to say, so thank you. Well, I just wanted to say that, first of all, I was taught that I always say, I say it for the newcomers because I don't believe in God and I have 25 years, but I firmly believe that this is a spiritual program, and it means the step 2 is the step of hope, and that's the principle behind it, and it means there is a solution, there is another way, and that other way is spiritual, and sometimes we don't see it right away, but that's okay, because eventually we will, and we'll get it. And so also I always like to say that step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, not just 1, 2, 3, and 10, which are really good to practice and live, but also all the others. So I know for myself, I have to practice all 11 steps, and then I do have a spiritual awakening. Now, one of the things that I know from the steps is step 1 tells me I'm a limited human and I am completely powerless over others. So whatever action I take, and I run the serenity prayer in my step 1, I have no control over the outcome. So I have to always be ready to give up, to turn it over, because I don't know what the outcome of any of my actions will be. I just know I'm responsible for taking them. Step 2 is the principle of hope. And step 1 is really about honesty and humility. And to me, those are such freeing concepts because you're just being right sides. You're being your true self, which is really helpful. Now, the 3rd step prayer tells us to give up the bondage of self. But you better have a self to give up or it's not going to work very well. If you don't have a self and you think you're going to give it up, you're going to get stuck. So, step 3 for me is practicing not knowing, trusting, and surrendering every day. Many times a day, not just once a day. And so step 4, which I do all the time, is about what's my part and all the rest of it. But also I've added something, and that is to look at the core beliefs or the conditioned beliefs that keep me stuck in that what's my part. So I am a firm believer, and it's really, really, really helped me to look beyond just what's my part, but look at what's keeping me stuck there. And it's beliefs. I mean, what I heard from the speaker today is a bunch of beliefs. You guys you're Americans, you get conditioned that women are supposed to have, what did you say? And then it all kind of pans out and there's no hardship that we need to endure. That's a belief. It's a conditioned belief. It's not the truth. It's the conditioned belief. Now we can have all that, but we have to surrender it. And my primary relationship is with a higher power and with my true self, not with another body in front of me. Now, I do have that in my life, and I'm grateful for it. I don't diminish it, but it's not what I learned in recovery is I have to look inside myself, not outside, and I can't pursue those materialistic goals. I have to pursue the spiritual goals rather, and that means Christ said, look within your heart. The kingdom of God is within. Buddha said, be a lamp unto yourself, and I don't actually know what the others said, but I'm sure they said something to that effect. So I have to look within, and that's a major point. After I put the plug in the jug and did some other things that I had to do, like to discover my true self, where I end and other people begin, then I also have to do that 180-degree turn to go away from the external and look within. That's my task, and it panned out really well, so I'm sticking to it. Anyways, I do appreciate the chair, and I do appreciate all that people have shared. I just have this extra thing that I wanted to add, that the body in front of us is nice, but it's not necessary. I have to primarily look at my spiritual growth and my spiritual values, not pursue the materialistic goals that our society is great at giving us. I'm an overachiever too. And my higher power has given me plenty of occasions to ask for help, and I have to do it. And it's humility. It's practicing the principle of humility, being right size. I'm a human. That means I have limitations. I can't know everything, even though I'm pretty smart and I can. At work, I've always been the go-to person. It doesn't matter. The point is, I still have to practice humility. I still have to recognize my limitations, and I still have to ask for help when I need it. So. Anyways, thank you all, and I'm very grateful to be in AA and to be a part of this program and to have these principles that I can practice. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So my partner just gave me a little note and says, "Don't need to be in relationship," which is true. I mean, we don't need a body outside ourselves. But it's nice. I agree. I'm a human, so I do like it. It's just that I don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Chad.
Thanks,
Chad
Sam. And
P.
alcoholic.
Hey,
and thanks so much to you and Cynthia and everybody else. I'm grateful that you mentioned 14 years sober and Mark Houston, because when I was 14 years sober, a little over 5 years ago, I found myself in a psych ward with overwhelming suicidal thoughts, including thoughts of drinking, kind of going like, I didn't know that this happened to people with, 14 years sober. And it was after that I heard Mark's talk. And when I was there in the psych ward, I'd had, I believe, a surrender experience, which it's a good place to have one. But I started to find there that there were things that had come up in fourth and fifth steps for me that really need professional help. I was molested as a kid. I had an abusive mother. Those were kind of the two main things. And then I'm one of a number of alcoholics in my family, and there were wounds that came with that I didn't really know about. And I had this idea for some reason that if I was working this kind of a program, then I shouldn't need to go anywhere near a therapist or a counselor, like Cynthia said, or at least I shouldn't need to work with one intensively. And I mean, I had blown right past page 133 of the big book, where it recommends going to, I think it says psychiatrist, but I think that was their word for, psychologist then. And it helped me to learn that Bill W. went to see Harry Tebow in sobriety, for therapy. And my sponsor, Mel B., he was a historian, and he said that Bill had an abusive mother, and that helped me to learn about too. And the other thing that helped me real quick was listening to Bob Earl. He was in Laguna Beach, just like Chuck C. They knew each other, and Bob in double digit sobriety had had to start really going back and working on his past with professional help as well. And I believe it saved my life. It certainly made my life in sobriety a lot better. So love you all. Thanks.
And Belinda has her hand up. Hey, Belinda.
Hey. Hi, Cynthia. Oh, it's so nice to see you. I was so excited too when I saw your name. I was like, God, it's been forever. I remember I first started at the back room, and your shares were so poignant and so pointed and good. And then when you were talking about when you got sober, I was like, good grief. I mean, what kind of life could she have had drinking if she got sober so young? But quickly I learned how much of a life she had. Anyway, you're definitely qualified, which is not my judgment. Anyway, I just want to say hello. And for some reason, when I went back and looked and just thought about the next frontier and looked at wherever it went, what he's talking about, we worked hard about how the old timers that they worked hard and, gotten sober, but, there's got to be something else. We put the cart before the horse, and just this song popped in my head, and so I had to go read the lyrics, and it was, is that all there is? And I remember when I was a little girl and our house caught on fire, and my father's face, he gathered me up in his arms and raced through a burning building out on the apartment, and she stood there in her pajamas and watched the whole world go up in flames. And when it was all over, I said, is that all there is to the fire? And if that's all there is, my friend, then let's keep dancing. Let's bring out the booze and have a ball, And then he takes her to the circus, the greatest show on earth. And she sees all the dancing bears and the clowns and the elephants and the beautiful lady in pink tights. And it was awesome. But if that's all there is, then let's keep dancing, bring out the booze and have a ball. And then the last one was she fell in love with the most wonderful boy in the world. And we take long walks by the river and sit for hours gazing into each other's eyes. We were so very much in love. And then he went away, and I thought I'd die, but I didn't. And then when I didn't, I said to myself, is that all there is to love? If that's all there is to love, then let's keep dancing, bring out the booze and have a ball. And it's just kind of like the same thing. It's like, those things don't bring us where we need to be. I mean, they don't. We have to have the spiritual part, because if not, why not just drink? I mean, if we can't be happy, joyous, and free, and obviously wealth and having the right man or woman or friends or job or any of that does not do that, we have to work on it. And yeah, I'm really glad you're here, and I'm really glad we're doing this, and it really makes me think about where I need to be. Thanks.
What about my friend Lauren Murphy? Glenn.
Oh, thanks, Sam. Lauren, alcoholic. Hi from the other room, Sam. Cynthia, thank you so much for your share. When you were sharing, I was like, she is me. I am she. There's a lot of similarities that I picked up on, I mean, especially even when you were talking about the exercise where you're left there standing. I went through that same exercise and I was the last man standing because I wouldn't ask for help, because I don't want to be dependent on someone, because I don't want to be codependent. I don't want to have to depend on someone, because I can survive and I can figure it out myself. And I don't want to ask for help. And there's so much ego and pride loaded in that. But the dependency should fall on God. That's kind of the core of it. And that's what I was getting when you were talking. I'm like, God, I'm so like that. But also too, when, what you were talking about, this kind of idea of what your life should look like. When I got sober, the first year it was like this, fog had been lifted and I was just in this space where it was like everything amazing was happening. And then everything got really good. And it's kind of like, okay, well, what else is there? What's, is it going to keep getting better? And then coming up on 4 years sober, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm in this, now really trying to focus on, the emotional aspect of it and maintenance on that. And what does that look like in maintaining sobriety and, maintaining, prayer and meditation and staying active in the program and all of those things. And, this year I would probably say has been the hardest in sobriety, just because of the challenges, and in the big scheme of things, they're so minute. I mean, it's really just, it's like, we moved, that was super stressful. Work is stressful. I have all these things going on, but also too, we got married last year. And that was an amazing thing, but, we've thrown a lot into life in a really short time. And, I thought, I'm going to, when I was really young, this idea of like, I'm going to get married, I'm going to, live in a house with a white picket fence and a blue door and have children. And, I'm 38 years old and, I don't have a house with a white picket fence. And I mean, I do have an amazing husband. And I'm not just saying that because he's on this meeting. I've got to be mindful of what I say. But I do have an amazing husband and a beautiful relationship that is kind and loving and rooted in God, which is really such a good thing. But it doesn't look like, what I thought it would look like. And kind of relinquishing that control is what I've had to kind of really focus on this year, and letting go of just like literally just letting go and being like, okay, I can't control all of this. I can't make things happen. I can't make myself get pregnant. I can't, make my life look as beautiful as I thought it was. But also too, I think part of that, the flip side of that, is trusting God, but also too, being grateful for the things that I do have, that I wasn't where I was, 4 years ago. And a lot of times, being an alcoholic, I forget I'm an alcoholic. And then I'm reminded when I start acting out or, not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then that shows up, that surfaces in my life. And then that's kind of when I have to be reminded to remember, hey, this is who I am. This is how I am. And this is how I have to maintain. When we got married, the stepdaughter, I have a stepdaughter who I love and cherish. With that comes, there's an ex-wife there. And I also too have, have things that I work on and things that I need to, with trying to control, or how I think that there should, how I think she should raise her daughter, and how I think this should happen, and how I think it should go. And if I was her mom, then this is how I would do this. But at the end of the day too, I mean, I'm a part of her life, but all that's none of my business. And I have to remember that, the only thing that I can do is to get up, to show up, and to be present and be mindful and try to be the best version of myself that's better than I was yesterday. So I really appreciate your share. It really resonated with me. And there's a lot of similarities. So I it hit me at my core. So I appreciate it. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for calling on me, Sam.
Thank you, Lauren. What about my man, Chris H? What's up, Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an alcoholic. Good to see you, Sam. Cynthia, thank you so much for your share. It hit me in a way I'm surprised, because when you began to talk about how independent you are, you know, my usual response to people who talk like that is like, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Particularly because I'm the opposite in a lot of ways, that I'm so dependent, not kind of as the letter speaks, that I'm dependent on people's reactions to what I do. You know, if I'm nice, I need people to say thank you. If I do a good job, I need the praise, and my general well-being rises and falls with my perception of what I get back. And I put a lot out into the world, and I am very codependent upon what I receive in return. And so the cure in my mind often is that I need to be like you. I need to be, or as you say that you are, I need to not be dependent. I need to have thicker skin. I need to not lean on people, not rely on people. And I try that a lot. I mean, that's my constant struggle in life, is to not rise and fall and just not care. And I put on a false, front. And as I heard you, what my chief takeaway from what you said tonight is, actually, that's not what I need, but I need to be dependent on something else. You talked about the tools of this program and on God. And it really struck me in my core, because even when I'm doing God's work, when I'm helping people, I don't go to God and don't offer things up to God. Even when I am praying or praying for someone, I don't depend on God. I depend on myself, and then people telling me how good I am. And just what you were sharing tonight, that being independent isn't the answer either. And that I strive to do that. And that actually is what drives me out of my mind. That's where my life is unmanageable, because I can't do that either. And so it just, again, my takeaway is relying on the right things, which are the spiritual tools in this program, and on the fellowship here that is healthy dependency. And just know I'm grateful for you, for your share, for this meeting as always. Thanks.
You're muted, Sam.
Kate from Akron.
Thank you, Sam. So many good things have been said. And thank you so much, Cynthia, for your share. And I too have a lot of similarities with, there was a time I had a husband and a stepson, and the adjustment to being a step parent was interesting, was challenging. And so much has been stripped away in my life of, we had the big house. I was married to the doctor with the big house, and I got the 2 daughters, and I had my stepson, and then he got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and our whole life turned around, and there has been a stripping away of, our houses have gotten smaller and smaller, and just a whole lot of things have changed. So these are all good lessons for me, not to be dependent on that external. And yet I wouldn't be honest without saying there are times I miss, and that's why it's so important to stay in the present. So I'm not like, oh, if only we still were there, or we still had this, or Chuck could travel, or if only we could do this or that. And I can't, that messes with my serenity. I can't have any serenity if I'm wishing for things to be different than they are. And so the reliance on God is so enormous, I'm so, and if I don't rely on God and pray and do my spiritual work, I can be a mess. So, it's a journey. I love this meeting. I loved the shares tonight. I just feel like people, are just so real and beautiful. And thank you so much. And I'm going to pass with that.
Thank you. So the book I was mentioning earlier was Unpopular Studies in the Last 3 Steps. Very interesting book. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying that it's an interesting book. There's some cool stuff in it, and it looks like, we had a great meeting. Cynthia, do you have anything else you'd like to add to the whole mix here? I mean, anything you've been thinking about while we're calling on people?
No, just I appreciate all the shares, and I'm just so grateful that I got to be here tonight with you all.
Yeah, well, we're glad you came. It's
Yes.
so awkward. It's so awkward when you do the those martial arts class that we did, because we were home group meetings for members for a long time, and Cynthia's a little stoic, and they'd have the guy would be like, okay, I want everybody to partner up, and you have to pretend like you have like a gun. You give like a fake gun or something, because it was all just straight self-defense. And I remember Cynthia's like, well, I'll partner up with you because there's only a few people, and we knew each other. And then he was like, okay, Sam, I want you to choke Cynthia, and I want you to put the gun to her head. And she's like, yeah, you can choke me. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. It's okay. You choke me like that, and then put the gun up there, and then just it's so funny. Anyway, that'll break the ice. Anyway, well, thank you guys for a wonderful meeting tonight. Might end a little early. And thank you all. Why don't we go to our inner room here. We'll just mute ourselves, go to our inner place and say the Lord's Prayer. I'm in. Love you guys. Thanks for a great night.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Love you all.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I like
Sam.
your picture. It's good to see you, buddy.
Thank you.
Great to hear you, Cynthia. Take care.
Thank you.